Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I am your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Dr. Latame Phillips. Dr. Latame Phillips is a distinguished leader, philanthropist, and advocate born in San Diego, California. Dr. Phillips' commitment to service led him to the front lines of Operation Enduring Iraq Freedom, where he served in the Army and witnessed combat duty. Following his military service, he transitioned into the corporate world, holding prominent roles in wealth management and with massive companies. Driven by passion for social impact, Dr. Phillips transitioned to the nonprofit sector, joining Hunger Busters, an after-school feeding program. Under his leadership, the program significantly expanded, providing nearly 3,500 dinners daily to students in need. His dedication to community service has earned him prestigious awards, including the Dallas Police Department Civilian Partner of the Year, Zakat Lodge Nonprofit Partner of the Year, and the Presidential Community Service Award. Dr. Phillips is an author of a best-selling compilation book as well as a sought-after TEDx speaker, using his platform to advocate for combating childhood food insecurity. You can find Dr. Latame Phillips by going to his website, hungerbusters.org, or emailing him at lphillips@hungerbusters.com. Hello, Latame. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Hello, Olivia. Thank you for having me.
I am super excited for the show. And if you guys were watching on YouTube, you saw me smile a bit and get cheery. And you probably heard it in my voice when I was talking about Latame, because Latame and I are very good friends. We actually met during the TEDx process, and we did our TEDx in Dallas, Texas together. And we will talk about that journey later, but I am extra excited about today due to that, because we've had such a connection since that experience. But to start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Dr. Latame Phillips?
That's a loaded question, but I will surmise it by saying success for me is that making sure that everyone's path to the American dream, or everyone has a path to, I should say, to the American dream, because it's not the same to everyone. And so when you don't have those traditional roadmaps that society says that you're supposed to have, and you're dealt a hand that most people would look at as unfavorably, I think my job is to make sure that whatever your pathway to your American dream is, I help you get there, especially if you're a child.
I love that. And I think it's so important to understand and to I really sit in the fact that the American dream that we talk about so much, those resources can look different depending on what your background is, the communities you're in. And sometimes it isn't that you just didn't take those opportunities when they came. You didn't even know the opportunities were sitting in the room with you. And so it's really important to identify that and then go, okay, how can we help? So I love that you brought that up. And I want to go into the first time you decided to, and I shouldn't say first time, but you really decided to take a big step in building and being an advocate for our country by joining the army. And you went to Iraq, which is a very different environment than here in the US. How did that play a role serving our country in that capacity, in that environment, especially in how you looked at our communities and communities in general and how they individuals interact with each other?
So I grew up super poor in Southern California in San Diego, and most people wouldn't believe that because they see all the they've been to San Diego and they see all the touristy good places, but My situation wasn't that great. I joke around and tell people that I was so poor that I went to KFC and licked other people's fingers. But when I joined the military and ended up in Iraq serving there in Operation Enduring Freedom, or Iraqi Freedom, I should say, um, it was eye opening because as poor as I thought I was growing up in America, I realized that this is a whole level of just destitute and living, and it makes you grow up really, really, really quickly. It was actually the first time in my life where I said, "This is for real. This is serious." Um, there's a lot of situations that you go through in life, whether you're taking the SATs or finals in college. But when you realize that your life could be on the line if you do something wrong, you grow up really quickly.
I think it also sheds a light, when we look at communities, even communities that are not as well set up, right? Whether that be due to high crime rates, whether that be to resources to a community, whatever it might be, we look at that and we think, oh, that's the worst it could get, right? Oh, we just need within our own country, if we provided resources there or they took advantage of resources, a lot of time looking from the outside perspective, it's like, okay, well, they could do it. Like they're just not. But, one thing I've noticed too, and when we talk about going outside even our US country, is that there's a lot of environments where you think in your head of environments near your hometown and you go, okay, that's the worst it could be. Growing up in New Jersey, South Jersey, we have Camden, is the next Camden's the next town over for me, right? So everyone says like you don't cross that line. Like, and I hate to put it that way, you really are taking your life into your hands when you do it. Police officers who were police officers for Camden go, do not go. Like, call us if you accidentally end up there. And so you think like, oh my God, that's the worst it could get. And then I went to Haiti a handful of years ago and I did mission work there. And like, you don't have a bathroom, you don't have any running water. You are sleeping literally on the cement that their house is built. And we're on sugar canes, where I learned a lot about, even the fact that in the US, they're the ones getting the sugar that we have in literally everything. And they might have a family of six and they might make $6 in a week or 12 US in a week. That's not feeding them. So who's the ones that aren't going to get fed that day or that week? And it really opens your eyes to the privilege, I should say, some of us have without even realizing the privilege that we have because of the environments that we're in. And I remember landing back in JFK airport and like kissing the ground and my friends are like, what are you doing? And I was like,
Yeah,
I could go to the bathroom, like in an actual bathroom again. Like, do you not understand the privilege that is knowing that, like, you could wash your hands when you're done going to the bathroom? Like, even those small things, I think sometimes get taken for granted. And when you do have experiences like that, and for you, like, going, being in the military, but also seeing a combat area, it really can alter your point of view on things.
absolutely. And I think to add to your point, it's like we think about, okay, so we don't have this, we don't have that, so we're poor. But you know, I grew up food insecure, so I would go to a grocery store and steal food. But what if there were no grocery stores? You know, and so are you going to somebody else's yard and stealing a live chicken? So it's a different perspective, totally different perspective.
For you, what was one of the biggest things you took out of being in Iraq and when you left the military that as you transitioned really kind of stuck with you from that community outreach and making an impact standpoint?
So as bad as like some certain areas were, there was a tremendous sense of community. And one thing I noticed with the locals that were friendly to UN and U.S. forces was that they all worked together. And so taking that same mindset into this country and into different cities that I've lived in, I've always wondered, like, why aren't we working together? And one thing that baffles me is that there are people that have been living in their home 5, 10, 15 years and don't even know their neighbor's name. And so a sense of having a strong sense of community makes for better neighborhoods, which makes for a better city and makes for a better state. And so that's something that I always try to make sure that I instill in the people around me, um, a sense of community.
And I think it's so important. And I love how you highlight too that not only a sense of community, but I think we should all stop for a second and ask ourselves, do we know all the neighbors on our street? And I'm betting the people listening right now, at least half of you are going, I couldn't tell you my 4 closest neighbors. Like, if you could tell me what their names are and what they do for a living, I think you've won. You could check the mark. But if you just know, oh, they're a family of 4 people and you couldn't tell me anything else, then maybe go over and I challenge you to walk across the street and actually introduce yourself and have that conversation. And
Absolutely.
Latame, as you transition out, you first went into wealth management. What was it like transitioning back into civilian life for you and deciding to go into wealth management?
So quite honestly, I was ready to get out of the military, and so I can't take too much credit because I wasn't one of these. Oh, I'm so patriotic. Let me go serve my country. I did it because I wanted my college paid for and I wanted it paid off. And so getting out and then going into wealth management, the first part of that of my job title was what was most daunting and life changing was wealth. So growing up, if you had a couple of $100, that was a good thing. But then when I started working in wealth management and hearing that there were people with millions of dollars um, for investing and to do things, it was different. And so just listening to the different perspectives of people that grew up a different way and learning about family offices and learning about people that had $100 million investable income and learning and meeting people that were born a billionaire. Um, and then most importantly, how money and wealth is truly managed and transferred um, was life changing for me and pivotal to my success today.
And it's something you and I have even had many conversations on. I think I've had conversations on different aspects of wealth and managing your money and knowing all the options. And I really think part of the importance in m- wealth management is having wealth knowledge, a wealth of knowledge when it comes to your financial security. Because we all do have that control over our finances. We might not be in control of how much we make or, certain aspects, but we can control the knowledge that we have. And then based on that, the decisions we make. And you and I have had discussions where I'm sitting there and I'm going, Latina, I thought I knew that. That's such a better decision. Like, why isn't this being discussed? And then we go down the rabbit hole too of like, why aren't those conversations happening?
Right,
Um,
exactly.
and really what it means. And so I want to dive a little bit into that later. But first, I want to talk about Hunger Busters. You're the CEO and your organization's primary aim is to provide meals to children in Dallas. Additionally, you spearheaded the Hunger Busters 140-day initiative. Could you elaborate on what got you really involved in Hunger Busters and deciding to make that move from wealth management into the community outreach sector? And what drove you to start the 140-day initiative?
So, while I was in corporate America, I did the cliche things. I would feed people on Christmas. I would get meals together during the summer. I would feed the homeless here or there. And one of the things that every time I would talk to like adults that were less fortunate, I realized a lot of the impetus of the problem was when they were a child. They didn't have the proper nutrition, which led to them to drop out of school, to go get money, and to take care of themselves. And so I said, okay, what if I could start feeding children? And so when I started working with Hunger Busters, one thing that stood out to me was overwhelming almost. So the Dallas Independent School District has about 156,000 students enrolled. Out of that, 92% of those children are food insecure. Food insecure meaning they, without choice, don't have a meal to eat after they eat lunch. So imagine if you're in third grade, you eat lunch about 11:30, and you're not going to have a full meal again until the next day when you come back for breakfast about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And I said that this is something that has to change because of how affluent Dallas is. So you got 92% of the children that are in this district, or 145,000 students that are food insecure. So I started telling business owners about it. I started going to companies and corporations, and then from there I said, "Hey, this should be a citywide initiative." So I started talking to councilmen, and that led me to the mayor. And what the mayor did was sign a proclamation making the 145th day of the year Hunger Busters Day. And so what it is it's an awareness campaign. And when we're on this day, it's just something where the 145th day of the year, and this year it's May 24th. We want to tell, normally it's the 25th, but it's a leap year this year. But it's just the information that there's 145,000 children in your city that don't eat a meal at night. But if you look at it a step further, with America being as affluent as it is, 1 out of 5 children nationally don't eat dinner at night. And so the 145 campaign here in Dallas is for that, but it doesn't, it's not a city centric issue. It's a national issue that everybody should be aware of. And so what we do is we just ask people to give $14.50 per month. It's a subscription based model and it comes right out of your account. And we use that money, and that money is used to feed a kid for 1 week.
And it's something too that I think we for I don't want to say forget at times, but when you think of schools and food programs within schools, you go, okay, well, if a child doesn't have the food, they could go to school early and have breakfast and they're being taken care of. And I think we even saw it even more. I saw it in my community at least, and didn't even realize how many kids, even within our school system where I live, uh, were on these meal plan kind of programs where they were relying on the food that was at school to really eat their meals every day until COVID hit and the high school started going, you could let us know, and if you need a meal, we'll work it out and you could come pick it out up. And all of a sudden, there's lines of cars in the parking lot every single day picking up the school lunch meal. And then it was, okay, well, if you need dinner, and lines of cars. And, sometimes when your child or a child is in school and you're not aware of the food insecurity going on, right? Other children don't know. They get food just like me. They don't put and two together. Those conversations aren't being had. There can be some shame to it, but also because the conversation isn't being had, you don't really know what it looks like until it's
Yep.
staring you in the face, right?
Mhm.
Take the it's not an analogy, it happened, but like take the analogy of the car, the lines of cars. Well, when you're driving by a massive high school and all of a sudden every day at the same time, there's cars that fill the parking lot, I think there's a bigger discussion that needs to be had. And now every time, every day when you drive by that school, you're still seeing the lines of cars. Well, now you need to actually have the discussion because it's in your face. So sometimes, Latame, how have you approached having conversations with people who go in a way is out of mind? So I don't think about it. It does, or this doesn't really affect me.
So that's the thing that I tell them. It affects all of us. So if we think about the fact that there's I don't know if it's a rumor or if it's fact, but they say that prisons are built upon third grade test scores. So why not look at it the opposite way? Why not look at it like where you should be able to project how well your business is going to do based upon third grade test scores. So if your labor force, if your blue collar labor force is 10 years away, most people that have businesses don't say, well, in 10 years, I'm going to close my business up, unless they're at a page where they want to retire. But even then, they want to sell it and make some money. So investing, it's our problem because if you invest in a program like Hunger Busters that's feeding kids, and our motto is feeding kids, fueling futures, because the future of that child, it starts right now. And so when we're feeding them, there's three major things that we've noticed that Hunger Busters program in the schools that we're in does. Number one, attendance issues start to dissipate because a child wakes up, he or she doesn't feel sick because really they're hungry. So they go to school. Number two, the behavior issues go down. You've seen the Snicker commercials that say we're not ourselves when we're hungry. And I'm sure, Olivia, you've been in a meeting before and it ran a little bit too long and you're like, wait a minute, it's lunchtime. I'm not paying, I'm checked out. And so behavior issues go down because their stomach is full. Something to point out with that too is that every time a teacher has to stop and reset the class before because of a behavior, so a kid acts out or whatever, you're looking at 38 seconds of learning time that's lost, but not just for that child. We're saying for the whole classroom because the environment stops. And so, what studies have shown is from K4 all the way to 12th grade, when food insecurity is a major part of that community, you're looking at 3.5 years of learning that's lost. That's huge. The last thing is because we're feeding these children, they're going to school, behavior issues go down, test scores go up. But when test scores go up, children graduate to the next grade. When they graduate to the next grade, graduation rates go up, which means children are more workforce ready, military or trade school ready, or college ready. And so, said all that to say, it affects all of us because of those reasons. And so it's better to take care of it now as opposed to later when other social programs have to be taken place or have to be put in place for adults that don't necessarily have the means or the ability to take care of themselves.
And Latim, for you, you and I have had this conversation on your unique approach, even within Hunger Busters, in the aspect of you personally go there and help feed the kids and make sure everything is going smoothly and everyone's happy. But a big part of you also goes there to spend time to connect with these children, to really go, hey, here's someone looking out for you. Let's have a conversation. How are you doing? Let me be that check in. But I think another admirable thing you do beyond all of that, right? Which is all admirable, don't get me wrong, is you build those relationships to also get to a point where you can have conversations on wealth and financial literacy type conversations to go, hey, here are your options out there. And just really opening children's eyes of what the possibilities can be and what information they might not have resources for. So for you, why do you believe it's crucial to engage young people in these conversations early on? And why do you prioritize reaching individuals who may not initially see financial literacy and education as a priority?
Well, because there's a big misconception, and that's the children that we feed, their parents aren't in their lives. There's a thought that, oh, they're on drugs, they're in and out of prison, they're lazy, don't want to work, and it's actually the opposite. Um, they're in their lives, but they're not available to them because mom's working two jobs, dad's working two and a half, three jobs, and so their time is spent making money just to pay bills that they never get an opportunity to talk to an adult. And so one of my purposes, obviously, is just to be a friend, because you never know. Sometimes, and I tell men when they volunteer and women, when you say, "How are you doing?" just hold on because you never know what you're going to get. But as we become friends with them, Olivia, I know this is your show. I want to correct you on something. Something that a word, the term that we don't use and I hate is we don't use financial literacy. We say financial empowerment. Literacy kind of entails that they don't know, and so you're teaching them how to understand it. Empowerment happens when you teach them a more excellent way. Like at the beginning of the show, when we talked about all the conversations that we talked about, with just different ways and tools to use your money. So it's important for them to be able to see a normal guy like me, that can't hit a baseball, that's not tall enough to dunk a basketball. Um, I think I can sing and rap, but I don't. Nobody's ever given me a contract, so I'm not famous. I'm not an actor, but I'm a normal guy that has realized how to make a living, through investing and proper business techniques. And so when you plant that seed in the third grader, and then they see you again in fourth grade and see you again in fifth grade, and you're constantly talking to them, and you say, hey, here's an investment camp that you should go to instead of the football camp and the basketball camp. Do all of them buy into it? No. But the seed is planted where I've had kids that come back to me 6, 7 years later when they're in 11th grade or a freshman in college and say, hey, Dr. Phillips, I remember what you told me when I was in fourth grade. Can you show me that thing about investing and show me that thing that how much do you say if I pay in this so much, how much money will I have when I turn this? And so that's why I do it.
And I think it also opens the door to know, like, hey, not everything has to look the same way. Not everyone has to put their money the same place or utilize the same tools. And there are options out there. And what do you want to do? And I love how you bring up the fact of empowerment because you really are empowering yourself. Um, Financial freedom when you get to that place, and that can look, again, just like success, it can look very different for a lot of different people in a lot of different environments. And I actually recently had this conversation when I was talking at a university. I was talking about career development and the importance of giving back and all this stuff. And I actually started off after I was introduced by asking the class and the students who would come into that class of what success looked like. And the first four answers I actually got, Latame, you're going to laugh at this, is financial freedom and to have money. And we're going. And the first kid says that, right? I'm going to graduate and I'm going to have financial freedom. I'm going to make enough money. Second kid goes, to make enough money. Third kid, same thing, right? We get done the fourth kid, and the three professors who had brought in their students go, one of them jumps in and goes, I really hope the next person isn't going to answer this as financial freedom. And I said, actually, I want to challenge that mindset. You're saying financial freedom, but what does financial freedom really look like to you? Does that mean having the freedom to go out and eat whatever you want when you're done work? Okay, that might look like having X amount of money in your bank account. Does that mean being able to travel whenever you want? Well, now not only do you need more money, but whatever job you get, you better have better vacation days, right? You need more of those vacation days to go on those vacations. What and if you're a business owner, like Latame and I both know, that might mean you could be working long days some days. Even when you're on vacation, you could get those calls. So it was really interesting kind of diving into that and going, what does financial freedom look like? But what is that empowering you to do? What does that make you feel fulfilled? How does that look? So I love that you bring that up. And one thing that you also brought up was the fact that a lot of times when individuals think of food insecurity with children or not having financial empowerment is because they don't have the parents present to give that to them, or different scenarios that are happening in their childhood. But as you touched upon, it can be something as simple as my mom's here every day to chuck me into bed, but she used to work 3 jobs, and so except for those 15 minutes I don't see her. And so that has really encouraged you to start a groundbreaking project. And when I say groundbreaking, Latame and I have talked about this, and I was like, this is such a great concept. Like, why isn't this being talked about more? So that is part of the reason he's definitely here to talk to us today about it. And we're going to learn all about it. Is you have created a project that has the potential to revolutionize, and I don't use that word lightly, the resource access accessibility in communities nationwide. Your research and thoughtful consideration of the various aspects has is very evident from our conversations, let me tell you. Rather than merely addressing the immediate issues of childhood food insecurities or paying bills, you're developing a solution that empowers individuals to transcend both the community and generational norms. This involves offering education and financial support to the parents to enable individuals to improve their lives and pave the way for their families' future prosperity. Could you shed light on what you're working on more than, what I just hit on, and what gave you this innovative idea?
So we started something called the HB group. The H3 group, it solves a problem of nonprofits that need more things and need more avenues and resources, but it stops them from going out and creating it themselves. So it was born during COVID. So when you speak about those long lines of people in line to get food, that was Hunger Busters. Hunger Busters was one of the first organizations in North Texas to get a grant through the USDA, and so we started supplying these boxes. And so the only places that we could go because the lines were so long were either malls, school parking lots, or mega church parking lots. And so when people would drive through, they would ask for other things. Hunger Busters, we just do food. And so I started calling all my other nonprofit friends, and I'm like, hey, people need diapers, get out here. People need shoes, get out here. People need rental assistance, get out here. People want utility assistance, get out here. And so what it turned into was this nonprofit mall inside the mall parking lot, outside the mall parking lot, where people could come and in some cases get 20 different services. And so they would come for food and get a COVID shot. They would come for food and get mental health. They would come and get prayer. They would come for food and get, shoes for their kids and education information. And so when COVID ended, a lot of the nonprofit leaders that I work with, we were kind of sad because it was like, hey, like we're not going to be able to work together anymore. And so I thought, yes, we are. And so I started doing some research, and reached out to HKS, second largest architecture firm in the world, and they designed a state-of-the-art facility for us in which all these nonprofits that I just spoke about, we can all move in together. And with us sharing services, it gives us the ability to affect more because now that we'll be under one roof, we're not paying rent. We're not each one of us are not paying utilities. We're not so we can hire more program directors. We can get more supplies and things to give to our children. But then we did what I did not want to do. We started another nonprofit. Um, but this nonprofit is special because it's different. And everybody says, "Oh, I'm different." But what this nonprofit does is it pays for adults to go to school. Um, the reason why we have to do that is because I've talked to fathers, I've talked to mothers that want to go to school, but they say, "Hey, when?" Because if I quit my second job, I can't pay my electricity bill, my car payment. If I quit my first job, that's the job that I need to pay my rent or my mortgage. And so we take on those utilities, we take on those life bills they have. We have what's called a rebirth program. So it's a maximum of 9 months. That's the term rebirth, where when they're done, they have a new skill or a trade. Each one of these skills or trades, on average, are paying about $45,000 more than what they were making before. So what we also do during the same time is they're required once a week and they get mindset training. And this mindset training at night is really just based upon explaining to them, hey, you're moving into a different tax bracket. You're now you're going to have investable income. You're going to have money where you can get life insurance for your child. You know, you're moving into an income where you can now afford to buy a home, which now gives us another avenue because then we invite the banks to come. And when those banks come, now there's a 30-year relationship that's created with this person through a home mortgage. And so what we're realizing is now that these people are able to make more money, they want to stay in their communities. They want to build their communities up. And so by doing this, it's creating a residual stimulus package, if you would, where these people on these families that we're serving are now making somewhere upwards, in some cases, an additional $90,000 a year in the family. And the goal is to put ourselves out of business because we cannot continue to feed kids and give out clothes and all these different things. So why not figure out a way to elevate them and to a new level? And that's what this does.
And I love that because not only are you currently helping, whether that's through Hunger Busters and giving meals to the kids who need them, but also you're then building the relationship with the parent, going, okay, use me as the resource. Let me give you the tools, not just that will help your child today or help you today take one step. We're going to take a leap, but we're going to take that leap and we're going to take it together. And then I love how you've added the component of mindset because there is a lot of change that's happening. But as those changes also happening, it's having the conversation of what that looks like, what to expect, so that they don't potentially, I'll use this as an example, get into a bad financial situation because they don't know, okay, what healthcare they should buy into within a new role because they might have not had it before. Which one is the right choice for their family, or what option is going to get them the best return long term, whether it's on a house or what you everything might look like. So I love how you've added that. And you I shouldn't say added, you've put that into what you're doing. For you, why do you think this isn't taking off the same way other initiatives are taking off?
You know, I think a lot of it, if I'm being very honest, this will sound controversial as well, is because what it does is it creates true equity. And it gets rid of a caste system that, quite frankly, the United States has had for quite some time. And so when we're saying that we're taking the least of these and making them equal to certain people, it can be frowned upon. And I also feel like when people hit a certain age, the thought process is, well, I made it, then why can't he or she make it? And then if there's a racial component in it, or is added to it, people look at it and say, well, this person of this race made it. So that should apply to every single person. And it doesn't work that way all the time. And so every situation is different. You know, and every situation doesn't fit into this box in which we put it in. And so it can be difficult explaining to people that this doing it this way is easier than doing it the other way. Because if you look at the math, it's easier for us and it's cheaper for us to pay for the parent to go to school, pay their rent and utilities for a few months versus feeding their kid or children from K3 through 12th grade. So if you just do that math quickly and say, okay, if I invest this up front, I'm not investing this later, it makes perfect sense. But we live in a day and age where certain things are looked at as bad because we're giving handouts out, or that's socialism, or when it really isn't, because everything that we do almost is a social program. And so we pay into something, and then we're supposed to get a check when we get a little bit older. It's called Social Security. And so if we look at it and we divert the dollars a little bit differently, we'll put people in a much better situation where they don't have to worry about it on the back end.
And I love the fact that you brought that up because a lot of times we do have those misconceptions or ideas in our head of, okay, well, even the idea that, okay, well, I give to taxes and so my taxes are going to community outreach. And this is one of the community initiatives that they're doing. But it challenges your idealism when we go, how do you want your taxes, for example, to go into those initiatives? How do you want to invest that? And I love how you use the word invest because it is really true. It's a question of where do you want to pay for it? Because you're going to pay for it. At what point do you want to pay for it? And what is the return? And is it something where, and I hate to say it this way, checking the box on feeding a kid for the next 12 years, or going, okay, I'm going to give the tools and resources to the parent as we're feeding the kid today, but we're going to give those tools and resources to the parents so to set them up for their success so that in a year this child no longer needs to be here, not because they're not welcomed, but because their families in a different environment. Well, now the four families I brought up in that example about your neighborhood street, now they're all in a different environment. Well, now you're also building the community up, like you said, the team. And I want to dive into your speaking and a little bit before we end about the TEDx we did in Dallas, because that is how we connected and we have built the amazing friendship that we have had. But one thing that really connected with me that weekend, going through that experience in Dallas, and I know you and I have talked about this, but it's a word you have used throughout this recording was the community. Before doing the TEDx, I knew one person. I shouldn't say I knew no one. I knew one person who I was going to be sharing the stage with that day, but I knew no one else. I can tell you, and I'd love to hear your experience of that, but we did a few calls beforehand, and then we all got there for an event that Friday night. And I walked in that room, and the sense of community, and we are here for a purpose and to make an impact with the other speakers was like none other. And the next day, when we were giving our talks, like I felt like I knew Latame for 500 years. I was like, that's my brother. Like we're talking, we're hanging out. His wife
Mhm.
is cheerleading me on, like coming up to me after talk, giving me prep. And my family was there, and we're all doing the same thing. We're like, we're in this together. And it's something when we talk about life experiences and we talk about situations that cannot be recreated, or there's an opportunity that might not come up every day, like a TED Talk. You go into it going, okay, this is going to be such a cool experience, but you don't know what to expect. You don't know what to get out of it. And especially within the speaking community, you're like, okay, you're there to do a job, right? You're there to share a message. It, spread knowledge to individuals. But to me, one of the most rewarding parts of that weekend was the community we built within our group as well. And I'd love to
Absolutely.
get your thoughts on that.
So my job when I walk into a room, regardless if who the people are, what age they are, I'm saying, okay, who's going to be my new best friend? And so, but the reason for that is because you just never know the skills, the ability, the talents, the connections that that person has. So am I using that person? No, because I'm going to give that person everything that I have. And so like you actually did me a disservice that day because I didn't get a chance to talk to everybody else because we were so dialed into our conversation and the conversation I was having with your parents and everything else. But I did make a lot of fantastic contacts. But coming out of that weekend, there was such a great xenophilic approach to everyone where it was kind of like, okay, we should come back and like give the same speeches tomorrow to like another group of people, not so that we can be on stage again, but so that the group that we were together, so we could be together a little bit longer. So I really did appreciate what the TEDx stage brought not and so I feel like I've gotten more out of the community, just like you said, that we kind of curated with the speakers versus people saying, "Hey, we heard you talk on TEDx. Come speak, come speak, come speak."
And that was one of the things, going through the experience and doing it for me it was such a big deal too because I was going back to the South to give a TEDx talk, and like I am from the South, so like I was even joking before that because I was like, oh, my Southern drawl is going to come out, and it did come out as the weekend was going through. Let me tell
Mhm.
you, it came out. But one of the things that I got from it is conversations I had after with people in that room going, "You guys did phenomenal. You challenged the way we thought," but it was also a conversation of, "You guys seem so united." You know, people were walking by going like, and they told me this after, is like, "It seemed like you guys have been friends for years." I
Yeah.
go, "I've known these guys for 6 weeks." Like, I'm glad you got that because that's how I'm feeling. But
Mhm.
it was one of those things where I go, that is so special. Being able to go through an experience and know that no matter how many times it might get replicated, right? There's TEDx's all over the place. Um, but that time with those people, and you can't duplicate that. You can't take another group of 20 people and put them in a room and think that you're going to get the same bond or the same connectivity and community feeling that we had that weekend. And I think that was so powerful in how we showed up, not just for our talks that we did, but and the community in Dallas, but also for the community we built together, because it was really like, okay, we've been on this ride and now we're going to support each other and we're here and let's enjoy it because you can't duplicate that. And I think it was also a sense in the team, I'd love to get your insight, is we had open dialogue, and that is one of the things that I think we all need more of in our life, is open dialogue of going, "Hey, we might all come from different areas of the country or different experiences or have experienced things like loss differently. But let's have a conversation. Let's lean into that and let's help each other grow."
Yeah, and so like if I was to be a little bit more direct,
Mhm.
you know, I'm a black man from Southern California with parents from Africa, and you are a white girl, redhead from 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 the Northeast. And so in most cases, we wouldn't be friends. In
Mhm.
most cases, if we were somewhere out and about, we probably wouldn't talk to each other. And so the situation that we are put in, the opportunity, I should say, with TEDx, it created some very unlikely friendships and bonds that, quite frankly, in my mind, will last forever.
Oh, yeah. And that's like one of the things, when I talk about my TEDx, when I've done interviews or even on this show, and this is why I really wanted to highlight the bind too and touch upon this in this conversation and in this episode, is I always talk about, yeah, I got to talk on the stage. Yeah, got to give the talk and you get to listen to it. But that wasn't the most rewarding part for me. The most
Exactly.
the most rewarding part was Yeah, my family got to be there. But yeah, that's pretty awesome. But actually, for me, it was the friendships that now I know. Like Latame and I are talking regularly. I show up somewhere and I could call Latame and be like, "Hey, you want to go hang out?" Like,
Mhm.
or can I pick your brain about this? And it's that open dialogue that will exist in to me and always have the door open with those speakers that will, I mean, last a lifetime. I was even one thing, if you watch the promo video for our TED Talk, you see it. Before the talk, we're all in a circle and having that prayer circle. And what no one really knew was I'm half Jewish, half Catholic.
Hmm.
So to me, and like
That's
Latame's like
contradiction.
learning this. I mean, he's like, and you were in a prayer circle.
Right.
But it it wasn't just about having a prayer together. It was demonstrating how much of a community and united we were that day. And so for me, yeah, I got to share in a prayer circle, but and something, I pray all the time. We might have different beliefs, but I grew up in that environment too, going to church and going to temples. So I know both backgrounds, but also it was okay, we're all about to be united. It isn't just about the prayer, it's about so much more. And
Right.
I think it also relates to how sometimes religion, it might not be about the religion background you have or this or that. It could be we're about to be united front in the bigger picture. And Latame, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
Hungerbusters.com. My email is right at the top, or you can click on contact me. I'm not a big social media guy, so the only social media I have is on LinkedIn. And I believe I'm the only Latame Phillips on there. But if it's Latame Phillips PhD, I think. But yeah, those are the two ways to get in contact with me. If and I'd love to help in any way I can, or hopefully somebody will come become my new best friend because of this.
Well, thank you, Latame, for all of your insight today.
And thank you, Libby, for having me and opening up your platform so I could share the story of Hunger Busters.
Of course. And a few of our key takeaways from today's conversation is one out of every five kids in the US doesn't eat dinner daily. Think about that. The 145-day initiative that Latame had mentioned was because 145,000 children in the Dallas area do not eat that third meal daily. That's where that came from. So Hunger Busters really is driving the force in making sure that every kid could eat daily. And when we look at it from a bigger scale, it's one out of every five kids, as well as the fact that every 38, when a teacher has to reset a classroom due to any reason, a disciplinary reason, um, something spilling, a kid falling, whatever it might be, to reset a classroom takes 38 seconds. That's 38 seconds that they're regrouping, refocusing themselves in the class, that a child is missing out on critical learning time, which over many years adds up. 38 seconds, might not sound like a lot, but you do that a few times in an hour for 8 hours a day, it can add up very quickly, as well as almost everything we do is in a social paying it forward. We're buying into something socially today. So what do you want to buy into? Or do you want to pay, have that social payment be in social security? Do you want it to go towards relieving the stressors in someone else's life today and building up your community? What is the way you want to have that social payment be made? As well as think about the community you can build and how you can build up your community, whether it is directly knocking on the doors and the challenges that I kind of gave everyone off of Latane's examples. Like, if you don't know the people on the street, actually go this week and knock on their doors and introduce yourself. But also what is that community you want to build in other environments? Towards the very end, Latame and I talked about the experiences we had on the TEDx stage and the community and lifelong friendships we built off of that experience. So, whether it is your physical community or the community that you enter during speeches or in work, what do you want that community to really look like? And what is a small step you can make to build it up even more? This was a great episode with our top notch guest, Dr. Latame Phillips. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.